Hello, everybody, and welcome to another version of Bill Roden on Sports. I'm Bill Roden in an undisclosed location, clearly in pre-fight mode. I've got my robe on. You know, when you're starting to fight, you come in the ring and you got your Muhammad Ali kind of thing on. Um, anyway,
looking very comfortable, Bill. Very comfortable.
yeah, it's been a long week, man. I mean, for both of us. You were at the U.S. Open. I
Yeah.
was in Boulder, Colorado at Deion. You were watching Coco Gauff. We'll talk about later in the show. I was watching Deion go 2-0.
Yep.
You actually sent me a clip. We'll talk about the clip that you sent that inadvertently went viral. Um, we'll talk about that later in the show. But there's a lot to talk about. First, a racially neutral story. The big story, particularly in the NFL, is Aaron Rodgers. You and I were at the MetLife Stadium last night,
Yep.
and I'm not sure. Should I admit that I left? Because I mean, right? I mean, the whole thing is just bizarre, man. We've been talking about nothing but Aaron Rodgers. You had been out there to practice, even you brought.
Yeah.
You brought your kid, you brought
Yeah.
Kareem out there. Everybody's hyped up,
Yeah.
and it was like this is gonna be everything, man. I can't. I cut through traffic just to get there for the new Aaron Rodgers era. This is it. And
Oh my!
then
Did you see? But let me just stop you there. Did you see the traffic out there? It was crazy. I saw, I saw people jumping over the highway fence, like in the middle of the highway, separating the directions. I saw a
right,
girl hopping over the fence. It was nuts.
yeah, man, it was. I mean, you more nuts than usual. I'm like, the car, it was. You're right. The traffic is crazy, man. Like semi trailer trucks cutting you off,
Yeah.
and people were just desperate because they wanted to get to the game. But to see the beginning of the Aaron Rodgers thing, and it kind of reminded me of the my dad used to tell us the old Joe Louis fights, because
Mm.
Joe Louis, he said Joe Louis taught black people how to be on time. Because if you came late to his fights,
It was
you probably
over.
missed it
Right.
because he'd be knocking motherfuckers out in like the first round. And sure enough, man, take us through it's like by the time you got in there and the Jets had the first series, I think it was over. I mean, it was unbelievable, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, I'm trying to sift through traffic. I left later than I should have. I get there, I park around 8:10 or something like that. Game's just starting as I'm walking into the arena, and I get upstairs to the press box, and it was probably the second or third play I saw. I guess it was his fourth. It was the fourth play of the possession, and the first two plays he's
Right,
running for his life, so it didn't look good from the
right,
start. Anyway, it didn't look
right.
good. He's running for his life. That offensive line that everybody said was going to be the issue was not holding up. So, um, and then so what happens? He drops back, gets sacked. You see on his face it didn't look good. He's hobbling, and right away my thoughts went to I've torn my Achilles twice. I tore each one of my
Wow.
Achilles, and I just I feel like you can kind of tell his ankle didn't turn or anything, so I knew it wasn't a sprain. And the way he looked, he just sat down. It was just it was just a terrible thing.
And I'm thinking of it, always in the storytelling mode. And I'm going up and I'm seeing him carrying the car, and I'm thinking of all the storylines. You kind of think of he's going to throw six touchdowns and win or
Right.
something, but you never thought within. I mean, it's like the Jets. Who else could this happen to but the Jets and in New York? That all this hype, all this build up, and this cat lasts 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then we find out that he's out for the season. So
Yeah.
so now poor Zach Wilson, not poor, but one of the most despised young players in New York because people didn't like his attitude and he was arrogant and this and that, and they thought that they had moved on from him. Remember, all year, this whole pursuit of Rodgers was a disrespect at Zach Wilson. We don't, we're not going to get rid of you, but we're going to bring in somebody to blah 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 blah. And now here we are, 5 minutes of season. Zach, would you like to play quarterback for us?
And you can imagine. Can you imagine? I mean, he handled it well after the fact in the
Right,
press conference. He seemed pretty honest. He seems like he's grown up a little bit. Remember last year, he was like cocky. He was like a little
right,
overconfident and all that kind of stuff. Not anymore. I don't know if
right.
that's good or bad, to tell you the truth. But um, I mean, just can you imagine your Zach Wilson? I mean, he's just that's the last thing he was expecting to have
Right.
to
He
go
thought,
in game
right.
one or probably any. He probably thought he was taking this year off. He could chill.
This is a sabbatical. What do you call it? What do you call it when the
Sabbatical.
students do?
Like
Yeah, sabbatical. This is what they call the year, the something
the
year.
BYU year. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
we
more
just take.
what was it, the retreat? I can't remember what they
Yeah, remember
call.
when students do, like particularly Ivy League students, they take and they tour, they go to Europe for a year.
Exactly.
They have tea and
Intern.
crumpet.
This was like his intern year.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and then the first possession of the game, man, and this guy, and it was pretty clear it was serious,
I know. He
right
must
away.
be. You're right. It would be interesting. Not interesting. It would be fascinating to have if there was a camera just traced on him
Oh,
for the whole thing from the time they went out. And you're right.
wide eyed.
He's in this mode, kind of like, hey man, And I'm sure there's a part of him. The guy's 40 years old, so I'm sure there's a
Right,
part of him that's probably thinking this motherfucker probably gonna last the whole season. But he
right.
may have thought it would be later rather than sooner. And it
Right.
would be. I'd love to see the camera when he's looking at the action. And first of all, you're right. From the very first pass play, when he's running for his life, there's probably part of him thinking better than him than me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, I mean, he had no time at all. He was literally like running for his life. So before he got hurt, I was like, this is a bad sign. And just in terms of them winning the game, I was like, this is terrible. Like
I
the
know.
offensive line, and then and it's just so you're right. It's such a Jets thing.
Right.
That's the part of it too. I grew up a Jets fan. It's almost like the Mets. Like anything that goes wrong, anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Right.
And if there's any franchise this would have happened to, is the Jets, and not just the fact that they lose their quarterback and all their hopes and dreams are flushed down the toilet, but all the hype ahead of
Yeah.
time,
Right.
right? The
Right.
the hard knocks, it was
Right.
like it was a love fest. It was just like, oh,
Right.
he's gonna, they're the Jets they're gonna be Super Bowl contenders. Joe
Right.
Namath is
Go Jay.
back, and
Right.
all this stuff, and then for it to be the first
5
game and a
minutes.
sellout. They got everything planned. They got the halftime show planned. They got fireworks. I mean,
He runs
everything.
out. He runs out. Aaron Rodgers runs out with a flag.
Oh my
It's 9
god!
9/11. And there's always a part of it. We talked about it a little bit. I know it was sacrilegious, but we were all, everybody who was here for 9/11.
Right,
I mean, it's something you never forget. But
right,
again, just typical to this country, every single thing is monetized.
right,
Every single thing in this country is monetized.
right.
Everything, grief, good, the bad, the most noble thing. It's everything is immediately we touch it and it's just monetized.
Yeah.
Everything.
Did you did
9/11,
did you
monetized.
did you hear about there was I forget which betting company it was. I don't want to say the name because it's one of the big ones, but they
Right.
got in trouble for advertising a never forget parlay.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like no matter what good you do, if I mean, if Martin Luther King were to come today, I mean, everything. Well, not getting too deep into that, but everything is monetized, and I've said it. Well, we all say it, but when money becomes the highest value of your society,
Right.
you're in trouble. I mean, there is a complete crumbling of the moral infrastructure,
Yeah.
and so without, but
And
so
we're
you're
the
right.
and we're there. We're there.
Oh, we're way deep into that, brother. We're way deep into that,
Yeah.
and I don't know what that means. But we're here, and I guess maybe because we're in it, we grew up in it. As African Americans, we're
Yeah.
like we are right in that bubble. We're part of it.
Right.
How our this country was built because we were monetized.
Right.
And even if you look at the black labor
Yeah.
in sports, kind of the same thing. Like anyway, but so it's. I also thought it was too bad that the brother, the left tackle, wasn't it Dwayne Brown? Because you were in the locker room.
Hmm.
And the brother who's a left tackle, who's Floyd, is the guy who ultimately sacked. They stand in front of his locker,
Yeah,
talking
I
about,
mean,
what do you have to say for yourself?
yeah, yeah,
It was your fault.
and which is a joke too, right? Because first of all, and I had been joking, like people had been asking me, I'm a Jets fan. Oh, how do you feel about your Jets this year? You excited? Like everybody else, you excited? I'm like, well, we are the Jets, and he is, 40 years old, so
Right,
I don't know how excited I should get. I mean, he's bound to get injured at some point. I'm thinking he got injured last year. He played
right,
through it, but he was injured, and that was the excuse for him not having a great year. So I'm like, who knows what happens, and part of it was I was trying to, play reverse psychology and hoping that it
right,
didn't happen because I'm saying it will. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully it at
right,
least lasts about 10 weeks or so.
right.
But I mean, for it to be the first, I mean, this is like a movie. Like this is like a horror movie. Like
It's a,
it just
it's a horrible.
it's just, I mean, the first possession. I mean, you got to be kidding me,
And
man.
it's like we talked about, and we talked about how money is the highest value, but to the extent that we've not compromised God yet, I know that these people trying to find him. Where's the guy? We know he's got a price. We're trying to find him so we can find his price. We can buy him off, and it's almost like this thing happens, and it said, you know what? There's a sort of divine thing. You could do all the hype, you could do all the planning, you could have all this and lay it all out, and boom, I'm going to throw this at you.
Yeah.
Just as a very small reminder how fragile you son of bitches are. You
Right,
know,
and it goes back to the decision making too of the team. I mean, and this is like a Jets thing. This is like a Mets thing. This is like a
right.
Knicks thing. You always
Next
get
thing, right?
they get their superstars old.
Yep, yep,
I mean, he's
yep.
40 years old. It's not the offensive lineman's fault that
Right,
his Achilles was ready to go. I mean,
right,
quarterbacks take sacks. That's what happens. That's
right,
football. You know,
right.
I mean, he's a 40-year-old guy. That means your Achilles is more likely to go. So it's just and now Zach Wilson thrown into the mix, and he was a disaster last
Whoa,
year. So it's
right.
just, I mean, the storyline it never ends. So now we got the Zach Wilson storyline, and I don't know where it goes from here. As a
Well, yeah,
fan, I'm not optimistic. I'll tell you that
right.
much.
Well, and you mentioned I was going to bring up the Knicks too. It's the Knicks, the Met, and I guess it's because it's New York. We got to bring in the hype.
Right.
We have to bring in the name.
Right.
The hype. As you invariably, the names that we bring in are always done. By the
Right.
time they get here, they're finished.
Right.
And that includes Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers was finished. And by the way, how do you? I mean, I'm sure everybody in the NFL is at least publicly saying how sorry they feel. How the hell do you feel if you're the front office in Green Bay? You're saying you're probably fucking laughing and lighting cigars. Said, Aaron talking, and then your boy Jordan Love comes in and has a really good performance
Yeah.
again
He
to
looked
start off.
great. He looked
And he's
great.
like 20. What? Jordan Love is what, like 25, something like
If
that.
if that.
If he's 25, and they were looking at, I'm sure thinking what's going on in the Green Bay front office now
I
with the
mean.
high five. People getting raises and promotions.
Oh man! I mean,
Whatever I
they
hear was
they should give the Green Bay GM Executive of the Year.
he's going to get executive of the year for saying, I think it's time to pull the trigger now.
What
Let's give
timing?
who can we give it to? Oh, let's give it to the Jets.
And you remember, I mean, and they got off him. They wanted no parts of Aaron Rodgers. They basically pushed him out the door.
Right. They said,
You
yeah, you
know?
can. And then Aaron goes into the cave and all that, the darkness and then the
Oh
whole thing with HIV, what is it, with the COVID and blah, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah. So you're right, man. You cannot make this shit up.
you
You cannot
cannot
make it up.
make it
So
up.
now, and then for us, it's watch, it's just watching the next chapter is Zach Wilson.
Oh
And this we win either way. If he's a disaster, we win. If he somehow
right,
has this miraculous season, we
we
win.
win.
We
Yep,
win either way. You
yep.
know.
And it's like last night. You got out of there at halftime. I was right after you. I was like, this
Yeah.
is just because remember the night before I was at the Giants. I should have left at
Oh my
halftime that
God.
game.
Oh
Like I
my
don't know
God.
why I stayed for that game. Like I was regretting it. I regret it still that I stayed for
Yeah.
the entire Giants game. Just a 40-0 drubbing to Dallas. So then the next day, same stadium, you got the Jets. and Aaron Rodgers goes down in the first possession. All the steam comes out of the fans. But the Jets, I think they were down 13-3, I think, at
Yeah.
halftime. You got out of there. I'm like, I'm right behind you. And I was like, so then, I went and got a cookie or
I looked. I
something.
said, "Where's Jamal?"
I went and got. I was like, I'm gonna go grab a cookie, and I started eating. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, well, they're coming out. They're coming back on the field now. So let me just wait. I'll wait one possession and see. If this gets out of hand at all, I'm out. But
Yeah.
they
Of
kick the
course, I'm
field goal.
driving.
They stay in it. I'm like, so I stuck around, and then they end up winning the game.
Well,
You know,
well, you're not you're just fan, but I mean,
but you,
also, I was thinking self-centeredly that I'm thinking I just flown in
yeah,
from Denver.
yeah,
You know, I fought through the traffic, and I was really excited about the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. I'm just for the story, and I'm saying, well, this dude goes down. I'm like, man, fuck this. You
right,
know, I mean, I, to me, that was a story. Now, clearly, if I was writing that, I stay. And by the way, just if any of my rodent fellows are listening to this podcast, don't do that. We did it. We were in
well,
D.C. Huh?
well, you've earned the right, Bill. You know what I'm saying?
I guess, but I don't know. Maybe we have to have you edit this out. But I was in D.C. this summer. The rodent fellows were in D.C. for the whole summer. Cameron Jackson from North Carolina A&T, Lawrence Goss from Florida A&M,
Mm.
and oh man, from Howard. Man, she's my favorite one. Um, uh, Takir George from Howard. So we went to a game. We went to the Washington Nationals game, and we stayed there. And then they were kind of losing and losing. Then it was a rain. It was a rain delay, and so come on, let's eighth inning, let's go. And against my better judgment, I kind of caved in because they weren't writing it. Against my better judgment, you know, we left. Well, of course, what happened? The national stage is tremendous comeback, and they came back to win. So I told them, I
Right.
said, listen, I'll never do that again. As long as you're a professional judge, never do that again because invariably, when you leave, something like that happens.
Yeah,
So
you missed the story. Yep.
fortunately for them, there was a young player from the Nationals they were writing the story on, young brother. And
Hmm.
fortunately, we came back the next day, and there was this great drama. And in the bottom of the ninth, the kid that they're all writing the story on gets the game-winning hit.
Oh, that's
So I said,
great.
okay, y'all were saved.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
anyway, yeah, man. Same old Jets. We'll see.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
listen, I know we have other stuff to get to. It was Ever said that I almost felt embarrassed having, you know, the Ravens lost J.K. Dobbins with an
yep,
Achilles tear,
yep,
and I mean, there was a time when I used to have a moral compunction about going to these games because this is such a brutal game, but I couldn't wait for the NFL season to begin. I mean, I tolerated the NBA, you know,
yeah,
uh, and the NBA is fine when you get to the very end, when you got the playoffs. Of course, this one ended with the Joker being there. But I said, man, I can't wait for the NFL season to begin with all the flaws, because every week is something like this. For the next 14, until the Super Bowl, every week is always something.
yeah,
But it's a brutal game, and it very like you said, even with Rodgers, you knew it was just a matter of time.
right.
With stuff we just didn't know that it was going to happen 5 minutes into the season.
No, right, and like I said, maybe we should have because he's 40 years old, and he was as skinny as I've ever seen him. I don't know what he was doing, but he was looking a little frail out there, and this was happening. But you're right. I mean, the NFL. All right, I was looking forward to the season also. I mean, there's just so many storylines. Like you said, Lamar Jackson. You got more black quarterbacks than ever.
Yeah,
You got so much talent around the league. It's kind of wide open in terms of who can win it. Of course, you got Mahomes out there in Kansas City trying to repeat, but it's pretty wide open. I mean, there's so
yeah,
much talent. So I was looking forward to this season also.
yeah. Even that, and you're going to give us your black quarterback ranking, which include, by the way, Tonka, uh, uh, Tua
Yeah, yeah,
Tagovailoa, because we
yep,
have adopted him as an honorary brother.
yeah, yeah,
But you're right; it was a record number of black quarterbacks. You had uh, all three rookie black
Yep.
quarterbacks.
Yep.
Kid in Houston,
Yep.
the kid
Stroud,
in Stroud, the kid in Indianapolis, the
Richardson,
kid in uh, who else? It was Richardson,
Carolina, Bryce,
kid in
Bryce Young.
Cowboy. Yeah, all of them lost, of course, but
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you know.
then the usual cast of characters. Lamar.
Yep.
I think I'm going to be in Pittsburgh next Monday when Deshaun Watson
Ooh.
goes in. Watson looked pretty good,
Yeah.
uh, and I feel I'm not sure. You talk about this moral tug of war that we go through watching football, and even with Watson. There's after his fall, he had such a great rise and blah blah blah. Then he had this fall about the sexual abuse. There's still two cases um, outstanding, but there was a part of me after like kicking him and all that that did it does want to see him do well.
Mm-hmm.
This is not taking him off the hook, and it's not having compassion for the women who were adversely affected
Right.
by his decision. But there is a part of me that wants to see him do well. Just because I want to see him do well, but also it'll be fascinating to see the if he does take Cleveland to the playoffs, how whatever antagonism there was toward him, Cleveland will totally disappear. It would totally disappear.
Right. And conversely, if he fails and he doesn't play well, they'll jump right back on it. Like all of a
Right.
sudden, people will act as if they do care,
Right.
about about the women.
That's right.
So
That's right. So yeah. So what's your but anyway, but it was a great first week. We don't have to go nip and tuck about that. Our colleagues on the other podcast will talk about the X's and O's.
yep.
But what do you think about the first week?
I mean, classic NFL first week, kind of sloppy play, but it doesn't matter because you have all these storylines.
Right.
Like you said, Lamar got a victory. Odell Beckham Jr. Didn't do much, but had a nice catch. Baltimore, all the Josh Allen played terribly. We didn't talk about that in the Jets win. Mahomes lost on Thursday night to Detroit. Kelsey was hurt. Tua uh, Tagovailoa, he had
He
a
looked
great
great.
game. Out gunslinged Herbert,
Yeah.
who was drafted ahead of him, and that rivalry, that San Diego Miami rivalry has been
I
around
know,
forever. Like
man. I
that's been a
know.
shootout for like 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
So you had that. I mean, typical NFL week, man. You look forward to it. Doesn't really disappoint no matter what,
Right.
and
I know you can't turn away. I mean,
yeah,
and I don't know. I've got the NFL Red Zone,
yeah,
which
me
is
too.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
know my brother, who was a big fan, he lives in Germany. And in fact, he's a big Chicago Bear. Well, he's been on the show.
Yeah.
So he's a hopeless Chicago Bears fan.
Oh, they had a
And I
rough
called
week.
him this morning and said, Gerard, I'm
Mm.
not sure which fan base feels worse today, the Chicago fan base or the Jets. I don't know. I
The
think they might,
Jets. The
yeah,
Jets.
yeah. Yeah, because you're right. At least, at
At
least,
least Fields is healthy.
at least Fields come back. Although some people may say, I don't know who's backing him up. They may say, who's backing up Justin Fields?
Well,
But
he needs an offensive line too. That's his
oh,
problem.
brother,
He needs a
man, let me
team.
tell you. But what's
He
your ranking? I mean, I know last year we let you off the hook because you didn't do your black quarterback rankings. But let's end this segment with your 2023 black quarterback rankings.
all right. My black quarterback rankings for 2023. Of course, this is a season long view kind of prediction, but also take into account, I guess, a little bit what happened in the first week. But you want me to go from last to first or first to last, Bill?
Let's go from well, this year. Let's go from last to first.
Okay. Uh, at 14, we're gonna start with Joshua Dobbs at
Oh, I
Arizona.
forgot about
There, are,
him.
and to qualify for this list, you have to be a starter week one, and he is a starter at Arizona. He was kind of just put in there. You got uh, Kyler. Uh, I'm
Murray.
blanking on Kyler Murray, who's hurt. He might come back at some point this year, but he's not there yet. So Joshua Dobbs, young brother, I think he played at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Um, he's starting for Arizona. Actually, did a decent job in a loss to in a loss to Washington week 1, but he's 14. He's kind of unheard of. 13, C.J. Stroud, one of the rookies starting in Houston. I like him out of Ohio State. Think he'll be good, but he has a lot to learn. At 12, I got Anthony Richardson,
Hmm.
and he looked a lot better than I thought he would in week 1. I mean, he's just a superior athlete. They were running him a lot, but he looked better as a passer than I expected. So I think he has a bright future, but this year is going to be a rough go. At 11, I got Bryce Young out of Alabama at Carolina. I think he's probably the best of the rookies, the most polished, but he's small. Hopefully, he can stay healthy this
Right.
season. He threw 2 picks in the first in his first game. I know, but he's a rookie. Threw a touchdown also. I watched some of that game. I was pretty impressed with how he looked back there and the
Mhm.
composure and all that.
Right.
That's what he's known for.
Right.
At 10, you mentioned him. At 10, you mentioned Green Bay. I got Jordan Love at 10. He looked really good. He has a good team around him. It looks like so
Yeah.
he might have a good shot even to have a good year this year. He's not a rookie. He was sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a few years, so he has a little head start there. And like you said, the Green Bay brass has to be, high
Yeah.
fiving and just loving the situation that they're in right now. Even if
Right.
even we know they won't admit it,
Right.
but they got to be happy. At 9, I'm gonna go with Geno Smith over
Okay.
there in Seattle. Might be a little low for some people, but to me, he had the one good year last year. We got to find out whether that's a fluke or not. I don't think it is, but he didn't look great week 1. They lost. They had an upset loss to the Rams.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can turn it around, and so Seattle can keep it going. At 8, we just talked about him. I got Deshaun Watson,
Hmm.
8th
Hey.
in the black QB rankings. He's
Okay.
fallen. He's fallen
No
because
quit. That's pretty low.
yeah, it's pretty low. I mean, he people used to consider him a top 5 quarterback
Right.
overall, and I got him 8 among
Wow.
black players, among black QBs. But he has a lot to prove. He basically missed a couple years. He was terrible
Mm.
last year, and we'll chalk that up to rust. But he has a lot to prove out there in Cleveland. But did get the win. Played okay. He play, I mean, he's a leader. He's more of a leader than just a pure passer or anything like that. He finds a way to get it done, and he did that week 1. So if he
Yeah.
continues to do that, Cleveland will be happy. At 7, I'm going to put Russell Wilson at 7. I know he had a terrible, terrible, terrible season last year. I'm going to chalk that up mostly to the coach. I agree with his new coach, Sean Payton, that it probably had to do with the head coach Hackett doing one of the worst jobs in the history
Ever.
of pro football head coaching, and
Right.
it bared out. He was fired before the
Right.
season ended.
And
So
speaking of Hackett again, relative to what we talk about the Jets. So where does he go? He gets fired, and where does he end up? At the Jets. And
at the
then
Jets,
he thinks he's going to have this. Oh yeah, it's going to be Hackett reunited with Aaron Rodgers. Oh no, my brother,
right?
you're going
And
to have Zach Wilson
why is he there? He's there only
because he's
because
right.
of Aaron Rodgers. And I was thinking to myself last night, like, why do they have Hackett now? Like,
Right.
what's his purpose now?
Right.
Is he a great offensive coordinator? I
Right.
doubt it.
No. 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 He got love because his dad and Aaron Rodgers. And again, so we have to talk about this divine providence. And he gets in and all that. And he goes, okay, all right, you got this near do well head coach. Now we're going to give you Zach Wilson. Let's see how good
Yeah,
you are. Deal with that.
exactly. So if he can actually, we'll see how good he really is now. And so that also doesn't bode well for the Jets.
Because we know how good he is.
You're starting to depress me, Bill. That's what this is
All
depressing.
right. So then
All
you
right.
have Russell Wilson now.
That's 7. At
Mm,
6, I'm gonna go Dak Prescott. Might be a little low for some.
mm.
Uh, you know, I I'm not a Dak hater. I root for Dak. Um,
Why do
he's
people
solid.
hate Dak Prescott? Has to be the most hated, likable quarterback in the NFL. I mean, what has he done? And what has
Exactly.
Dak done?
You're right. Like he's not controversial.
Right.
He toes the company line.
Right.
He plays. He's a solid player. Probably better than solid, but
Right.
has had a bad year last year. Threw a lot of interceptions. Didn't look great. I mean, he didn't need to do anything against the Giants in Week 1. The defense was dominant, but he didn't show me anything really. But I think he's solid, and that's where he is. At 5. I'm gonna go Justin Fields. I've always been high on this kid. You know that. Ever since he
Yeah,
was a
clearly
rookie.
high
Yeah,
high on
very,
him, as in
very.
marijuana, and that's hallucinogenic.
Hey man, he has all the tools. He broke all kind of rushing records from the QB spot. He can throw the ball. Also, he just needs some support. Like against Green Bay, I watched a lot of that game. He's when he's on the field, he's running for his life. He's getting sacked. He has no time. And on the other side, Jordan Love is just chilling like all day back there. Of course, if you put him on Green Bay, he would be all world. You know
I
what I'm
don't
saying?
think
That,
I
that's the
don't
way I
think
look
so.
at it.
Well, of
I,
course, that's where you look at because
that's the way I look at it.
you're high on Justin
I'm
Fields.
very high on Justin Fields, and I'm telling you, watch.
You and my brother.
He's gonna show improve for me. He's gonna show
Okay.
improve for me this year, even if the Bears are still shaky. Number
Okay.
4, I got our honorary brother Tua Tagovailoa from Miami, and he looked great. And he might even be higher on this list if you didn't worry about the injury and the concussion concerns, because whenever he's healthy, he's a beast.
Right.
Great passer, great touch. He has great weapons. Tyreek Hill
Great
and Waddle,
weapons. Great weapons.
and he knows how to use them. He knows how to find them. So Tua, he threw for over 400 yards in week 1. It's all we know what it's all about. It's all about him staying healthy. He took jujitsu, so apparently he knows how to fall now. Hopefully that works.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
see.
well. Okay. We talked about that last night, so we'll
Now,
see.
now
I
we go to our top 3
right.
here. Number 3, our guy Lamar Jackson. Didn't do he got sort of got his money, didn't get his guaranteed money. We talked about that all off season. Uh, you know, he got paid. We don't feel sorry for him. He got a lot of money. He has weapons this year. He has the rookie Flowers, who looks like he's gonna be great. Odell Beckham looked okay in week 1. So we'll see what he does. He got the win, which is, Lamar. Sometimes he does it ugly. It does,
Right.
for Lamar, I think the key is just getting wins, and we'll see
Right.
if he can do that. Number 2, I got Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
Great season last season. Again, slow start against New England. I think New England's going to be better than people think. I think they have a great defense this year. I think Belichick will have, especially with the Jets. What happened to the Jets
And
yesterday? I think,
and Buffalo.
and
New England got
Buffalo.
to he got
Yeah,
to look at those
Buffalo.
two clowns and say,
Yeah,
you know what, we got a shot.
they got a great shot. Now that I think about it, after watching that game last night, I think New England's probably going to be better than people think.
Yeah.
Maybe top 2 in the AFC East. But Jalen Hurts got the win there, and that's what he's known for. Also, just get it
Yeah.
done, running or passing. And then number 1, I got Josh Allen. No, I'm just joking. Josh Allen is also honorary black QB.
So
But
well,
yeah, number 1, I'm going Patrick Mahomes,
all right. Even in a
reigning
loss.
MVP. I mean, I don't know if you can argue with it right there.
But they
Until somebody,
lost.
I mean, they lost week 1. Do you doubt that he's going to get him on the right track?
Well, I gotta see it, man. I mean, you gotta
Hey,
see it's week by this is a week by week league.
hey, he's got to take more than one loss for me to knock him off that top
I
spot.
mean,
So
he's lost. Listen, so first he loses Tyreek Hill.
right, and
Okay.
won and came back, won the Super
And
Bowl.
came back, won the Super Bowl. Now Jason Kelsey.
He'll be
You
back.
know. All right, so we'll
He'll
see.
be
All
back.
right.
He'll be
But
back.
I like Mahomes. I think Mahomes is a good brother,
Yeah, Mahomes. Yeah, Mahomes. Yeah, he represents. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't run from what he is.
Right.
And right now he's the number 1 black quarterback. He's the number 1 quarterback in the damn league. You
Yeah.
know,
So
so
okay.
that'll tell you all you need to know. So that's my at this moment 2023 black QB rankings.
Okay. Very, very, very good. Uh so switching over to maybe we'll take a break here, but okay, we're back. Um so I think the two big black stories in Black America
Mhm.
happened on the same day. You were at the U.S. Open with young Coco Gauff
Yep.
with a spectacular performance, completed a great U.S. Open run, and won her first U.S. Open, which is a great story. You were there. At the same time, I was in Boulder, Colorado, uh, watching what is probably right now at least the biggest story in college football, watching Deion Sanders
Yep.
lead the Colorado Buffaloes to a 2-0 record, this time with a home opening victory over Nebraska. So start with you first. You were you were in at Flushing Meadows. You were at the U.S. Open. I think you shot a video of Coco's last couple of points that
Yeah.
went viral. What was that like? What was it like being making that kind of new history?
Yeah, I mean it was great. I mean you wrote a great article on Coco. I think I forget what round it was. After she had maybe a victory before the quarterfinals,
Right,
fourth round, something like that. And you really summed it up. Just how impressive a person she is, and that's what came across more than anything. I mean, she's 19. It feels like she's 25 at least,
right,
because she's been around forever. She broke onto the scene I think 15 to
yeah,
16 years old. So and people have been like, oh, when she's gonna win, when is she gonna win the big one? And so that she's had all this pressure on her, uh, and we forget, she's only 19. She
right,
became, when she made the semifinals, she was the first teenager to make the semis since Serena.
right,
So that just
yeah,
shows what she's accomplished, and for her to get it done, you could tell from the start of the U.S. Open that she just had a different kind of focus. Maybe you can even go before that to those warm up tournaments in Cincinnati
yeah,
and I think Montreal, Toronto, one of those.
yeah,
And she just had a focus. I think it also goes along with her parents were relinquishing some of the control, and she got a coach who nothing to do with the family in terms of Brad Gilbert.
yeah,
So she got some outside uh, information, and she just came in really focused, and you really could tell, like, she became unflappable. She was able to win even when she wasn't playing her best, which was her problem previously. And just to see her go through this tournament, you know win all the key points, and then in the final, she start like the first set she loses 6-2 to Sabalenka, and she wasn't playing well at all. And I was thinking to myself, I mean, you get to this point, you got to play your A game. You don't play your
right.
A game, it's
You're
not going to
gonna
happen.
lose,
So I'm
right,
thinking, she's squandering her opportunity. And lo and behold, that second set came. She started taking care of business. She lost herself in the moment, started playing really, really well,
mm,
and just and I've seen all kind of sporting events and championships, and I mean, I was a little emotional just the way everything went down. And you kind of you saw her whole journey, as I said, starting when she was 15, and for her it all to come together, and her finally get this championship, and her being, she was the anointed one,
yeah,
for American tennis, and for her to get it done with the hard work that you could see she's putting into it. It was just like a storybook ending. It was just great. And the way she handles everything,
right,
the way she's responsible. She doesn't run from any topics.
yeah.
You talked about that in the article, and then even after that, a funny story was in the semifinal. I remember there was a
Oh, the
protest.
protest. Yep.
Yeah, the climate change protest. This guy glued his feet to the ground. Right. The and they start yelling and screaming. They interrupt the match for about an hour. Disrupting her flow. All the media was pissed about it. They're like,
Right,
"Oh, you can't. Why are they doing this?
right.
Oh,
Why
and
are you
we're
gonna
all we're
protest
all
now?
supposed to be climate. We all support climate change,
Right,
but we're like mad."
right,
And then they ask her, and she's like, "Oh well, I'm not mad at them. I support climate change. I mean, I
right,
support taking actions, towards climate change and blah blah blah." And they had to do what they had to do, and of course, I wish they didn't
right,
do it on my time. But hey, they had to. If that's the way they were going to get
right,
uh uh you know attention, so be it.
right,
And so
right.
she just handles everything so well, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like her a lot. And um, yeah, I thought the response to the protesters was just so cool because she was saying, "Yo, well, yeah, I mean that's the only way if you have a point of view, I mean that's the point. It's to like disrupt stuff. That's supposed to be comfortable, you
Right.
know." And that was just so cool because she had spoken out on some stuff,
Right.
and you realize that's why you do speak out, demonstrate because you do want to um, you do want to make people uncomfortable. And we normally talk about that from the perspective of like if you don't like if you didn't like what happened on January 6th, the protest. But
Right.
the idea that that's why people protest, to make you feel uncomfortable. So you can't have it both ways. So yeah, I like Coco Gauff a lot. I'm just wondering, you know, uh, she's 19, and you look at Serena, who did the same, and now, she was like what, 41 or something. And I wonder if Coco Gauff is the kind of person, if and maybe it's a new generation. Will she be more like, oh man, who's the champion who she acknowledged? Uh, who? Oh man, she had the mental health issue. She just had a
Oh,
baby.
Osaka.
Osaka.
Yeah.
Osaka, and maybe that's this generation where I don't have to do this for 20 years. If I when it gets too much, I'm gonna step away.
Right.
I'm just not gonna have to keep grinding through. What's the point of grinding through? I'm gonna do it, and then when I feel uncomfortable, I'll stop, and then I'll come back. I'll live my life, and I'm just wondering what Coco Gauff's thing will be. Will she soon? Well, I want to win 4 majors. Next thing, I want to win the Australian Open. Then I want to win the French. Then I want to win Wimbledon. Then I want to come back here to defend my championship, and then maybe I'll retire. you know,
Right. Right.
retire at age. Maybe my goal is to retire when I'm like 30.
Right.
I don't want to, or 25 or whatever. So yeah, it was a great victory for Black America.
Yeah.
Um, so meanwhile, I was in Boulder watching Deion Sanders lead Colorado, which is, of course, has become a great story too, taking a program that was awful.
Right. And you were at both. You were at games 1 and 2.
Yeah, games 1 and 2. I'm going to skip. They host Colorado State on
Hmm.
Saturday. Game day is going to be there. I am going to fly out to Oregon State. I mean, not Oregon State,
Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah,
They
that's a
play
good one.
Oregon week after next. And again, if they're like 3-0 going into that game, it's going to be a huge game. And if they win that game, they play USC at home. That's going to be another huge game. I mean,
Huge.
every time they win, that makes the next game even bigger. Because it's just so amazing. I stood next to uh, you know when I went in Boulder, what's it, the Wu Tang Clan, the
Wu Tang Clan. Uh huh.
Wu Tang Clan was there. They have been performing in Denver, and they were
Really?
there. Yeah, they were
Really?
performing in Denver. They came to the game. They
Wow, I
were
didn't know
they
that.
were they were at
One
the
of my
game.
one of my favorite groups of all time, Bill.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Well,
Wu Tang, baby.
yeah, okay. I had no idea. I mean, I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I knew the name, but they were there. They were at the game, and apparently Lil Wayne was trying to. He was supposed to be there. Snoop Dogg was weighed in, and of course
Yeah.
you had his Dallas Cowboys. But then his brother, and I've forgotten his name. He played Malcolm X on The Godfather of Harlem.
Okay.
Uh, Terrific young actor. I can't think, but he was there, and in fact, he was standing next to me. This guy pointed him out. I said, "Oh wow!" But he was just pointing out why he came from L.A. to see Deion, and it's just really a tremendous story. Now, Deion's used the transfer portal probably like no one else,
Right.
and I suspect that there will probably be changes. you know,
Or copycats. You know.
well,
And
yeah,
I mean, I've said this before. I mean, uh, they're using a portal like this in basketball. Like Rick Pitino at St. John's,
yes,
he kept one guy. He came
yeah,
in, take over the job, keeps one of the 15 guys on the team. So that's a higher percentage than whatever the 80%
right,
of people that Dion. So he's kind of, it's being done. When you do it in football, it looks worse because there's so many more people in that you're dealing with. But he's basically, he's just using, these are the rules. He's allowed to do this. I think he had a quote saying something. I have to be. I forget what he said exactly, but if I'm here, I should be allowed to set my team up the way I want it.
yeah.
Um,
And St.
so
John's is being sued by our guy Mike Anderson.
yeah, for a different issue, but they need to pay Mike Anderson.
Yeah, well, he
Uh,
said they fired me for cause, and he said
yeah,
they're
that's a
firing me
joke.
because they just wanted to get Rick Pitino,
Of course, of course,
and
of
divert the
course.
money that they owe me to pay him.
Exactly. There's
You
no
know,
question. I'm not buying whatever St. John's is trying to sell with that
I'm
one.
not either.
They need to pay him his money.
Yeah, yeah, not a Rick Pitino fan. I guess I shouldn't blame Rick Pitino.
Not
Who's
for
been very
not for
fortunate.
that. Not for that. Not for St. John's not paying Mike Anderson.
Right. Yeah.
Like he it wasn't his call. You
Yeah.
know.
I guess. I mean, who knows when they start conspiring
Yeah,
for
you
him
never
to
know.
get that St. John's job. You know how
Right.
this stuff goes, man.
Of course.
They're all in New York and they meet at cocktail or whatever.
Right.
And they say, he's lets them know that he's ready to move and they would like to have you. But we
Right.
got Mike Brown. So, well, kind of like the Godfather. Well, you
Right.
just do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure he didn't stop him from doing
No, he
whatever
didn't. He didn't say, I can't
Yeah.
do this. I can't take this. The only
Yeah.
way Mike Brown could have won is that he would have like won the
Or
Big
Mike
East tournament.
Mike Anderson. Yeah. And
I
that's
mean,
the
Mike
and
Anderson.
yeah. So that's the thing. He didn't win. They didn't get to the tournament. So you know
Yeah,
you knew something was going to come down.
yeah. Um, so
But
yeah, so that,
pay him his contract. How about
just
that?
pay the man his money. But but
Right.
how can we pay Patino and Mike Brown at the same time? I
Well,
mean, Mike, not Mike Brown, Mike Anderson.
speaking of Deion, didn't they say Colorado's they didn't have the money? Didn't they say that we don't even actually have the money to
Yeah,
pay him when they announced the contract?
I
They
know.
do now, right?
They got the money now. I
Right.
know about wherever they get it from. I don't know who they had to fire, but they got
Let
the
me
money now. They're making it back.
tenfold.
Right.
I
The
mean,
season tickets in
everything,
advance,
betting.
box, everything.
They said that it was reported that the Colorado Nebraska game, and Nebraska's not even good. The
Right.
Colorado Nebraska game was the highest grossing football game, including the NFL, when it came to betting. It was also the tickets. The ticket prices were higher than any NFL game that week. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing what, and it's all Dion.
It's
I
all
mean,
Deion.
I mean,
It's all
and
Deion
who
Sanders.
he brings in,
Yeah.
right? It's just, I
His
mean,
son is playing great. His son,
son
you
looks
know,
great, looks
who's
great.
to like, and he's exciting, and they're bringing that in. He's playing himself into Heisman contention, you know, and it's great because he's got head-to-head matchups.
Oh,
Oregon, the kid
USC.
from USC. I mean, it's all there in front of him. It's like there's no debatable issues. It's all there.
Mm,
So I think it's a fantastic story. I'm hoping Travis Hunter. Travis
yeah,
Hunter is great. I mean, this kid's
two-way
playing both
player.
ways.
Yeah,
Two-way
it's
player.
unbelievable.
Like
Unbelievable. Do
Woodson,
you see that?
Charles
And
Woodson.
you were there. You were there for the week one. That was one of the best
Oh,
interceptions I've ever seen.
oh man, that he saved the day, and it was a great. It was an
I mean,
NFL. The guy from the Jets made an interception like that last night. Uh,
and it wasn't as good
right,
like
right.
that. I mean, it was just. I mean, that was one of the best interceptions I've ever seen. One of them.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
then he made clutch catches. You know,
Yeah.
so I guess the hope, I mean, from all of us who are interested in the story is that everybody stays healthy and that they
Right.
keep winning because when you in controversial proof that the winning speaks for itself.
Right.
And I think
And
Dion knows that.
yeah, and this is one of I mean, this is like a prime example of what you always say about you have to win. It's all about winning because people's opinions just change instantly. I mean, remember before game one, it wasn't any universal love for Dion,
No, no. Then
was
he's
there?
coming from Jackson State. Coming from that black school. All that inferior. And these cats are performing on the big stage. I mean, now the stage. It is a big stage. I mean, you walk around these schools, man. It's one thing. You walk around HBCUs, all that electricity. The bands and all that.
Right,
But then you walk around these places like Colorado and TCU, and I'm sure USC, and it's just such a larger stage with the
right,
pomp and all that, and what that must be like for these brothers, man. For Travis Hunter, one this time last year you playing at Jackson State, and
right.
now you playing on like this grand stage with you know uh, uh, interracial love. Everybody, the black folks, the white folks, all different case, all these people.
Did you have you seen the Colorado commercial
No,
where I mean, because I know you're covering the game, so you're not watching it on TV. But you know how each school does they while during the game, and then one of the commercials will be like, "Oh, Colorado, come to the school.
Right, 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 right,
We're great at or they show the academic programs and all that
right.
kind of stuff." You didn't hear about it either.
No,
So the Colorado commercial that comes on during their games, they're like, "Welcome to our beautiful campus of Colorado. It's in a prime location. Our science program is a prime
oh no.
department. We're prime. I mean, everything was prime." And then at the very end, they show Deion dancing at the end of the commercial. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I've got to find. I'm going to find that and send it to you, Bill. I mean, it's
Oh my
unbelievable.
God.
It's
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
And then you go in, man. Got these white people walking around. I mean, everybody not is white, but walking around Prime T-shirts
It's
and Prime
crazy.
Coach Prime.
It's crazy. That's what I'm saying. Winning, Bill. Like you always talk about it, but it's just so crazy. Like they weren't like he was a controversial figure just 2 weeks ago.
Right, exactly. And then after the first press conference, he's like calling people out.
Oh
Like, do
man.
you believe? And now this year, I mean, at this press conference, it was much more. His tone was much more mellow. I
Right.
mean, clearly because they just won at home, and it was just much more mellow. It was just more accommodating. In fact, after the interview session, he said, "No, I like this. Come more questions."
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the second one. He was much more friendly, and particularly to you.
Yeah,
He walks in and he made a joke. He's like, "Oh," he sees all the people. He's like, "Oh, it must be winning." And then he's
you're
like
right.
putting his stuff down, and then he looks over. He sees you, and he's like, "Oh, my dog, my dog." He was like, "Come here, man." He was like, "That's royalty right there." That was a great clip right there. And if people haven't seen it, it's on Facebook. I put it on Facebook, on Bros Pod on Facebook. Bill Roden on Sports on Facebook. Also Instagram, Bros Pod on Instagram. Check it out. I mean,
Yeah,
that's tremendous, man.
I
That's
was stunned
tremendous.
because I
I know
mean,
you could tell. You could tell you were stunned.
yeah, I,
You were
I
not. You were not. It wasn't a situation where you expect. You were just standing there like you're about to ask a question, and he
well, I
just
was,
saw you
what it was.
and
He
pulled
came
you
in.
in.
I had I had my tape recorder. I mean, my
Uh,
phone, and I just wanted to put my phone on the table.
right.
Just so I
Right.
could pick up
Right.
the interview. So I was
Right.
walking toward the table. Then he comes in, he looks up, and he says, "Hey, my dog," and
Yeah, it was
me, that's
great.
not my, I'm not.
Yeah, you were like, okay. You
I'm
were
like,
like, all
oh,
right.
okay, all right. I was gonna
Then
just
you went in.
shake
You
his
went in
hand.
for the handshake, and he gave you a hug.
He said,
You
"No,
know,
brother, no, bro, come, what?"
that was great. That
So
was
I'm
great.
like, fine. I'm sure people probably criticize that if I looked at that.
Nah, nah. I
Oh, there he
mean,
goes, conflict of interest.
hey, man.
but
Was it real? Recognize real, as they say.
but it also to me, it it also it gets everything he touches becomes big. Whether it's Jackson State, whether it's Colorado when he was playing. And in fact, I was going back to some of the clips I wrote. I was going back to like 1997.
Hmm.
I wrote a column when I was at the time, uh, and it was about when he got traded from the Cincinnati Reds to the San Francisco Giants, and
Hmm.
that's when the Giants had Barry Bonds,
Hmm.
and they put Sanders next to Bonds's club, next to his locker, and Bonds, Bonds has a very odd sense of humor, but when they put them next to each other, and Bonds stacked a bunch of chairs up to separate him, his locker from Sanders. He was joking,
Right. Right.
but he knew that. And then Deion said something like, "Yeah, I'm glad to be here because uh, Barry's the only guy who gets booed more than me." Yeah. But
No, it's
I
great, man.
forgot that those two were together. If you could imagine that,
Yeah. I do
Deion
not remember
Sanders
that.
and Barry Bonds in the same clubhouse.
I do not. I do not remember that. That's wild. That's
Yeah.
wild.
So anyway, no, so it's great. Well, anyway, man, listen, that's a good summary. We're gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
But it was a great week. It was a great week in sports. This is it's prime time in sports. So
Prime time, baby. Prime
it's a good
time.
it's a good time you covered it. So I'm off to I'm not sure. I've been sort of traveling back and forth. But next week, you got Jets in Dallas. The
Good
Giants
luck.
are,
Good luck, Zach Wilson.
yeah, good luck. Good luck to that. Zach and Dak.
Well, yeah.
And
Well, two good defenses, two great defenses, really.
yeah, so you can't see. I think, like I said, I think I may be off to Pittsburgh
That's
to
a good
see
one.
what if Deshaun Watson could lead them to 2-0
Hmm.
um,
Against Tomlin.
against Tom. No, that's I don't know. Man, people's starting to get kind of nervous. I mean, itchy about Tomlin, man. You know,
Well, we know when whatever happens, he'll be at least 500. We know that.
I know that's his that's his man. Well, we never dipped below 500.
Exactly.
So, all right, man. So, anything else before we get out of here? I gotta go. But,
Yeah, quick stuff. The quick USA failed to get a medal in the World Cup.
oh
We'll
yeah,
talk about that another time.
yeah.
But I
We'll have to
mean,
come back to that.
that's a huge disappointment. They probably had their C or D team out there, but so did other countries for that matter.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's that. We'll talk about that another time. Other than that, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Bros Pod. Check us out on social media at Bros Pod, on Twitter at Bros Pod, on Instagram, and subscribe to the audio version of the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're everywhere, and we're brought to you by Bet Online as usual. So get those bets in.
All right. Yeah. Bet. Bet.
Bet on Deion like everybody else did. You get paid. Get paid, baby.
Get paid. Get paid. All right, brother. And keep praying. You know.
Yes.
Uh, and we will see you next week.